Hi everyone, this is Migs from Sneaks and Ball PH, and I'm here with my good friend Carl Bancoro, who is the assistant coach of the Good Shepherd Cathedral School Midgets basketball team. So, sup Carl?
What's up, Migs?
How are you during this whole troubling time?
It's been a month and a half. I'm getting accustomed to the house life of not being able to leave the house. It's been really tough. Well, jokes aside, it's been really tough. But we have to deal with it the best that we can since since we cannot leave the house naman. It's better now just stay inside instead of adding up the people the people others have to look after and look at, since it's a case-by-case basis and it's really hard to point out the specific people who have that said sickness, since it's mostly passed through asymptomatically or depending on the situation.
But on a lighter mood, before we get into the serious questions, just a few kind of fun questions just to throw out. So during this whole quarantine period, what is your favorite or what is your go-to snack?
Go-to snack? A lot of bread. It's been bread.
Let's get this bread!
Any kind of bread that I can find around the house, I'll most definitely eat.
But where do you get your bread? I can't get any bread anywhere.
There's some bakeries nearby. So since my dad has the quarantine pass, he usually goes out. So every afternoon he buys bread for us. So I have to, it's not that I have to. It's more of an accustomed, being accustomed to do so. So there's that.
Carl's getting those carbs.
Well, we have to. We have to balance everything out.
On my end, I do some home workout, so most of my snacks, I try to get some protein in. So, trail mix is life. Trail mix is life.
Not bad.
Shout out to SNR Trail Mix. The best.
I just started working out as well, so NTC. Thank you.
Shout out to the NTC.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, I guess now that we're all settled in, I'd like some quick thoughts in general on episodes 3 and 4 from you.
Basically 3 and 4, to backtrack lang naman. Basically episode 1 and 2 points out, basically, aside from what's going on behind the scenes and during the time they were facing during the 97-98 season, it also gave us a background story on how Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen began, their competitive fire, their athletic feats, and everything in between. So now we go to episodes 3 and 4, which discusses the enigmatic Dennis Rodman, the Worm, and
shout out to Carmen Electra
and the head coach, the Maverick himself, Phil Jackson. So it just basically points out how both of them have a connection, how both of them found the bond. As told by Phil Jackson, their Native American roots gave them the bond. And at the same time, since Phil, according to some of his friends during his playing days, was an earlier version of Dennis Rodman in terms of doing the dirty work, banging inside, not intentionally hurting or hitting someone, more of being selfless in terms of sacrificing his body for the team. That's why he found a way to connect with Dennis. And that, of course, we all know Dennis Rodman, as he said, had as many of his teammates during episodes 3 and 4 said, had different needs to others. So you had to cater to him. He will cater to you, but it's a give and take situation with him. And for the last 3 years of the Bulls run, you clearly saw that the give and take approach they had with Dennis and with Dennis to the team clearly worked. A 72-win season, a 69-win season, and a 62-20 season during the last year. I should say,
Not bad.
Considering
I think all of the other teams would have wanted that track record.
That's why after Phil retired along with MJ, many still wanted Dennis. The problem was no one could get to Dennis. Like if it was not Phil or Chuck Daly, his former coach in Detroit, there was no way we were going to get to Dennis, which happened in San Antonio, LA, and Dallas. Yeah, those three teams that he played.
Yep. People forget about Dallas. Or they try to forget about Dallas.
you can.
Yeah, that they're like, no, that didn't happen.
The painful thing was if he just ended up 1 year later in LA, it would have been Phil.
Yeah, but it didn't happen. So I really did enjoy episodes 3 and 4 because as some of my more childhood friends know, I used to not be able to shoot. Used to not be able to shoot for shit. So Dennis Rodman was really my idol because I've always had the hops. So all I could do was like defend, rebound at a high level. And for those who don't know, Carl is a pretty good skills coach in my opinion. He helps me a lot with my shoulder, with my follow through and the alignment of my shoulders because I tend to be very tight in this upper area when I'm shooting my jumper. So you can see that over time it really helped. So thanks, Carl.
It's sort of a comfort level thing. I've learned to figure.
So let's get into our first question of the day. First major question. Dennis Rodman did start off by saying, do you think that if he wasn't on the Bulls, would they still win the championships from 96 to 98? And then he said, I don't think so. So you go start off, Carl. What do you think? Is it true?
Begin with Rodman. The Dennis Rodman thing was he was available at the time because of him not getting along with his coaches and teammates in San Antonio. So yes, the Bulls were interested, as mentioned during episode 3, but Jerry Krause wasn't originally interested. It was his assistant GM. But then at the same time, when he looked at it, and when you look at their first three-peat, they needed that big presence up front to be able to guard big, since that was always their way of playing defense. That MJ and Pippen would lock down the perimeter, then inside they would have, at the first three-peat, they had Horace Grant and to some extent Bill Cartwright to bang inside. So when the opportunity presented itself for the Bulls to go after Dennis Rodman, yes, there was some speculation and skepticism about it because of your aforementioned history, the bad boys and the Bulls. But I think MJ, Scottie, and Dennis had to embrace that for us to get along and win, we have to sacrifice and gel with each other. And I think it panned out. But to answer the question, there's a lot of factors that can actually come in. Because if they didn't get Dennis, the succeeding moves afterwards would actually doom them as well, because Miami was about to get Alonzo Mourning. Shaq, if Dennis Rodman didn't go to the Bulls, Shaq would probably have stayed in Orlando, because Orlando beat the Bulls in 94-95, and Shaq controlled them since no one in that front court could guard them. Since the Bulls will had to play Tony Kukoc coach at the 4. So for me, not just as a Jordan fan, but I think, as Jordan said, he will find a way to win at all costs. So probably him and Pippen, along with Phil's coaching, they'll at least get a championship. I'm not sure of the volume, if it would still be 3, it would be 2, or it would be 1, but considering the greatness of the team and their willingness to buy in, along with MJ being in shape for the 95-96 season, I think they could have at least won. They could have won. They could have and would have won. It's just dependent on who would you get to replace or that role, that fill that void, and who would be your other complementaries.
Okay.
What do you think about it?
I will always preface this that I'm such a huge Dennis Rodman fan, so this might come off with a little bit of bias, but I really don't think they would have won. they definitely be formidable, but I could see them either losing in the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, they did have bigs, but
it wasn't it wasn't the caliber of them.
And don't forget that the reason they were able to get him was because he was acting up in San Antonio, but he was leading the league in rebounding in San Antonio.
That was his fourth year in the league.
And they, if I'm not mistaken, they were able to get him in a trade for Will Perdue. So
yeah,
I'm sorry, no shame, Will Perdue, but you are miles away from Dennis Rodman. So
that speaks to the how bad things have gotten in San Antonio.
Yeah.
They could have gotten a better package for Dennis, but since Dennis wasn't such the easiest guy in the room to work with, hence why the trade package wasn't. And as well, since it also made sense, and at the time the 90s was all about the bigs, and they had to get at least a decent backup to lessen the workload of the Admiral, David Robinson. So we could clearly see the hindsight behind the trade. It's just that when you look at things from our perspective nowadays, it was just such a bad trade.
Yeah, it was. But the thing is with the finals runs in the 96 to 98 seasons of the Chicago Bulls, I really think that Dennis Rodman was just so essential because they did face against Sean Kemp and twice against Karl Malone, and no one can ever forget the numerous wrestling matches of Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman.
Oh, really? Even off the court, WCW.
Yeah. So I just think that I guess people sometimes they don't. Sean Kemp kind of gets swept under the rug a lot because there was also Fat Sean Kemp. Remember? Fat Sean Kemp was not nice, but
that's why
prime Sean Kemp was an automatic 20 and 10.
Yeah.
And
also,
Karl
Kemp was
Malone
almost rated Pippen. Kemp was almost rated Pippen.
He was. So
that's how he was. That's how good he was.
Yeah. That's my take. It's just like I have a hard time grasping because I don't know, Michael can score all the points he wants, but
no getting the rebounds. Don't see the loose balls.
I really love Tony Kukoc off the bench, and if anyone has ever played 2K, Tony Kukoc in 2K is a beast.
Godly.
But Tony Kukoc on defense is probably the biggest defensive liability of the Chicago Bulls dynasty.
Well, considering he has to play again, since he's not quick for a three, so he has to guard fours. And at the time, the four position was arguably at its deepest.
Yes, it was.
Many people from the 90s get swept under the rug, especially with Tim Duncan, Dirk, and Kevin Garnett ascending to the top 5 power forwards of all time. But there's Charles Barkley, there's Malone, there's Kemp, Larry Johnson. There's a lot of
LJ,
Grandmama. There's a lot of these power forwards there that were swept under the rug. Antonio McDyess had a good stretch as well. There was a lot of 4 guys that were just, if you put them.
Yeah. Joe Smith was actually kind of good then. Remember Joe Smith?
Former #1 pick, baby.
People just remember old, worn out Joe Smith.
that controversial trade that costed the Timberwolves so many picks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Joe Smith.
Just to recap, okay, so Carl goes with 1 championship, I go with none.
At least, and I'm not going to be saying just one, but they'll win at least 1. So
I guess that's it. I I don't know how else
But-
to convince you. That's just.
But
It's just
I
you
do get
needed
your
a
point.
power forward defender.
I do get your point with that. I do get your point because at the
Because-
time,
Luke Longley was a good rim protector, but Luke Longley
slow,
slow as
slow. He is slow.
he's like taking a vacation in Australia back home.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but there are no fast break highlights of the Chicago
I
Bulls with
don't-
Luke
Luke
Longley.
I don't argue with that.
Yeah.
I don't argue with that. And I do get your point naman na Rodman was so essential. And I'm not downplaying his presence and what he provided.
Yeah.
It's just for me that considering MJ's mentality at the time was get back to the top and since he was barely in shape when they played the I think he knows that he took personally that he'll find a way that he's that guy. This documentary this documentary is the evidence and the proof that a lot of people wanted to see in terms of how he thinks.
Yep.
The dude bet on everything.
Yeah.
Golf, cards,
Yeah.
himself, whatever.
Wait lang. No.
All good.
Okay, wait. I'll just check if. Okay, we all good. All right. Sorry about that.
All good.
And then one last thing I want to say about our first question is that you do know that, and the Chicago Bulls were well aware that they had a need at power forward.
Yeah, that was.
I was looking for a lot of different players that they could have traded to get or signed, and I was just very unsure of who they could have traded for given the capital they had, because I don't think they would have wanted to trade any of the major pieces.
Oh yeah, that one also. The reason I said that they could have won is because the three most attractive trade pieces they have is MJ, Pippen, and Kukoc. MJ, no matter what happens, they won't trade.
Yep.
Unless their organization at the time wants to host a protest of about every Chicago one and Illinois and in the vicinity, well then be our guest. But at the time they was, even during the 97-8 season, the only dude untouchable was basically Mike. Pippen, this was before the sour cut with Krause happened, so probably you're not gonna look at him as a trade asset unless you give them like basically the offers they got a year and a half later. Kemp, T-Mac, those guys. Unless you give them like such a sweet offer, they're probably off table. Kukoc, on the other hand, is one of Jerry Krause's steals, national steals. So
they just got him. So they just got him.
That's his second year in the Bulls. So there was no way Krause was trading him. Then add to that, Krause was the one who found him and got him to Chicago. No way you're trading him. So I agree with that, naman. So I have no argument. I have no